Our God is an awesome wonder. He reigns. He is sovereign. Not only did he see us where we are right now, but he saw us before we were. I love this song because it reminds me of who he is and what he's done for me. And the fact that I did not deserve it. We don't deserve it. But he did it anyway because he loved us first. Amen. Yes. Oh. By his stripes we are healed. By his nail-pierced hands we're by his blood, we're washed clean. Now we have the victory. The power of sin is broken. Jesus overcame it all.
Be seated. Ushers, would you come forward for communion? Communion, we're in the midst of this series called We Are the Church. Communion comes from the same root word, Greek word, as community. God desires community with all of us, but sin broke that community with him. But Jesus came and he restored that community by his work on the cross and his resurrection. So in the celebration and the remembrance of communion, we are all together as one, here, connected to God and community through Christ. As the elements come around, I'd ask you to take a piece of bread and a cup and wait. We'll take them together here in just a little bit. When you're done, you can set the cup under your seat. We'll take care of that afterwards. To our guests, if you are a follower of Christ, you are part of this family. We ask you join us. Amen. We're all part of the body of Christ. We ask you join us in communion. As we go back into worship, let's check our hearts as we approach the holiest and the most amazing act of grace we can imagine.
Our God is risen, He is alive, He won the victory, He reigns on high. Our God is risen, He is alive, He won the victory, He reigns on high. Our God is risen, He is alive, He won the victory, He reigns on high. Our God is risen, He is alive, He won the victory, He reigns on high. Hallelujah, you have won the victory. Hallelujah, hallelujah, you have won it all for me. Death could not hold you down. Hallelujah, you are the risen King. You're seated in majesty. You are the risen King. Death could not hold you down. My God. You are the risen King. You're seated in majesty. You are the risen King.
In the scriptures in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 and 24, it reads, on the night that he was betrayed, the Lord Jesus took some bread. He broke the bread into pieces and he gave it to his closest friends, just like you and me. He said, this is my body which is given for you. He said, take this in remembrance of me. This bread symbolizes amazing grace and the sacrifice of Jesus' body given for us. By his stripes we are healed. By his nail-pierced hands, every one of us is set free. Let us take this together, remembering that. Continuing on in the scripture, it says, in the same way, Jesus took a cup of wine after supper, saying, this cup is the new covenant. It's the new agreement between God and his people. An agreement, Jesus said, that's confirmed with my blood. He said, do this in remembrance of me as often as you drink from it. For every time you eat this bread and drink this cup, you are announcing the Lord's death until he comes again. This cup, this juice, symbolizes Jesus' blood poured out for every one of us in this room and for our world. An amazing act of grace. By his blood, we're washed clean. And now we have the victory with him. Let us take it together.
I'm reciting what Elias told me about why he wanted to get baptized. God has done a lot of stuff for us. He's answered my prayers. He's given us money and food. He loves us, so I want to love him. So I want to die to what I want and live for what Jesus wants.
I'm here today because I feel like God's telling me it's my time to get baptized.
You've been on this journey a while, haven't you? You've been thinking about this for a while. And so today's the day.
When I was in Ukraine, I was praying to God that I get adopted with my friends, Losha and Andre. I was praying for so long. I was like crazy about it. And eventually I started losing faith that it's actually gonna happen. And then one day, it happened. God actually answered my prayer. I just decided I'm gonna baptize as soon as I can and just gonna follow God, just be with him. So, today is the day.
I could start every sermon with baptism videos. Wouldn't that be awesome? What a great story behind all those. Welcome everybody to Westview Community Church, to our guests. We're not only glad you're here, we're blessed you're here. My name is Brian Smith. I'm our lead pastor. And for our guests too, when you walk in, you got a worship guide like this on the back, or these sermon notes. You're going to start seeing them pop overhead here in just a little bit as we jump into the sermon. I want to make a couple announcements really quick, is that there's three big things happening right after the service. First, there is a baptism class, because next Sunday we are baptizing in our worship services. So if you are in that area of life where you're kind of like, man, what is baptism? Or you're questioning even your own walk in regards to baptism, come to this class. You are not committed to do anything, but it will help you explore what baptism is if that's not part of your life. The adults will be in this room right outside here, the conference room, and then we'll have a room also for kids. I think that's in the worship guide there also. Second thing that's going on is welcome ministry training. We're always looking for people here that are the first face that the people that see that come to Westview. If you got a big smile and you really care that people are here, we want you on this team. So come to the training right after the service. And there's a third group meeting, which is young adults. We're just putting together a lot of our young adults. A lot of new young adults come this time of year. And so there's an event right after this where they're just trying to get together and hang out and talk about this fall. But the cool thing about all three things, baptism, welcome, and young adults, is that we've got like a truckload of pizza coming in just a few minutes. My wife's actually picking it up. And so it's like, so we're going to feed you. So hang around. You're not going to miss lunch. You get to hang out with us. So that is exciting. So jump into one of those. We are in week 3 of a sermon series called We Are the Church. And we're talking about what church is and what church is not. We are exploring the biblical basis of church in the midst of a lot of pushback, where we're exploring it in the midst of misconceptions and even fair shots at the church, because sometimes we don't get it right. And so on week one, just to recap, we went over this question: I don't need church, I can find spirituality on my own. And then last week we took on the topic of the church is irrelevant. It doesn't meet me where I'm at. Do you want to know how we answered those? Go on our website. You can watch those sermons and catch up on how we answered how relevant the church really is. So this week, we're going to jump into another question, another pushback about church and really what God's design is. And to get there, I want you to kind of go on a journey with me. I want us to go back to about 17 A.D. Jesus was born, and they moved to the town of Nazareth. Nazareth, for those of you familiar, probably the closest proximity of a town here the size of Nazareth would be Keats, about maybe 300 people. So Keats would probably be the closest example we have of Nazareth. You know, pretty quiet little town. What we know about Jesus' dad, Joseph, was that he was a carpenter, but this is a term that we kind of tend to misconstrue. In the original Greek, it meant he was a builder. He was a craftsman. And we think carpenter, we think of woodwork, we think of all the things that carpenters do, but chances are there wasn't much wood around Nazareth. It's a pretty arid country, but there was one thing that was used in building everywhere: houses, roads, and it was stone. It's a good chance that Joseph was actually a stonemason. And so what we also know about Jesus as he was growing up was he was as the Bible says, a carpenter. In the Gospel of Mark chapter 3, it says, they're kind of asking about Jesus. Isn't he the carpenter, the son of Mary? So we know Jesus entered into his trade. Probably did that in his teen years with Joseph. Now, if you would go into Keats, Kansas and start as a carpenter or a builder, there's not a lot of work in Keats. But we looked just down the road a few miles. There was this town called, actually a city called Sepphoris. Sepphoris was within 50-minute walk of Nazareth. And Sepphoris during about AD 3 through AD 39 was completely being rebuilt as the jewel and the capital of all of Galilee. It's beautiful, and most of it was done in stonework. So it's pretty reasonable to say that probably to put food on the table is every day Jesus and Joseph walked over to Sepphoris. Halfway there was a quarry where they grew on the stone. So they spent days in the quarry, spent days with a hewn stone, they would have been over there. But let me tell you what Sepphoris was like. So let's walk there together. So Jesus and his dad walking. Jesus in AD 17, about 15 years old. They're walking together. They got their little ancient lunch pails, right? And they're kind of hanging out Dusty Road. And it's like walking from Keats, really quiet Keats, into Manhattan. Maybe not as far. And they walk into Sepphoris, and it's much different. Sepphoris was the Greek culture center of all of Galilee. When you walked into Sepphoris, first thing you noticed was the road was all huge stone, just like all the Roman roads. It was made of stone. And along that was all these colonnades. It was beautiful. All these buildings, what's really interesting about that era is they dug down and found the houses, they had these mosaics of tile in their houses. It was a Greek culture center. But Jesus would not have missed in this city. The many times that he was there, whether they did work there or not, you don't miss it. It's like going from Keats to Walmart in Manhattan, right? It's an important city. He wouldn't have missed this, and that they had a huge amphitheater. Here's a picture of it, the ruins of it today in Sepphoris. It seated 4,000 people. And it's beautiful. Sepphoris actually means bird. It sits up on a hill about 400 feet high. It looks down on Nazareth. The views from this Greek amphitheater were amazing, but it's all made out of stone. There's a chance that maybe Jesus and his dad worked on this place every day of their life. And there's that view over the valley. Now, most people say, well, good Jews would not have went to a Greek play, right? It's like socially, it's like us going to the bar or something like that, right? Well, we know Jesus was not afraid of going to places that weren't socially acceptable. But the reality was Sepphoris was largely a Jewish community. They probably spent a lot of time in the Greek culture and involved here. So when Jesus came here and looked upon that stage, he would have saw actors in Greek plays. And there's a Greek word for actor. What is that word? Say aloud. Hypocrite. The Greek word for actor is hypocrite. So he would have saw up there on the stage, a lot of times, all these hypocrites. The hypocrites, when they act, it was famous. You look back in that time frame, all the Greek actors used masks. Hypocrite, hypo means underneath the mask. The word breaks down to they were in masks. And so what hypocrites were they were people who portrayed somebody that was different than who they really were. It wasn't really a negative term as much back in those days as today. Here's the definition of it today. It's a person who acts in contradiction to his or her stated beliefs or feelings. That's how we see a hypocrite today. It has a negative connotation to it. It's somebody who's different than their stated beliefs. And they act differently than that. Christians commonly get tagged with the word hypocrite. And sometimes it's fair, sometimes it's not. I think when we look at a lot of times, one thing that Christians do pretty commonly is that we sin. And when people see that we sin, they tend to call us hypocrites because it's against, we're not supposed to be sinful people. Well, that's not a hypocrite. That's just being human and fighting with the desires of life and things like that. That's not a hypocrite. The real definition of hypocrite is somebody who is actively deceiving. They're living a life, they have a lifestyle or a moment of their life where they are truly giving you an impression they're somebody they're not. And normally involved that's a lie, and normally involved that's a sin. But it's not just being sinful. It's living a life of deception. And so when we look at that, the basic question here is that the whole series here, we're dealing with maybe the top 4 or 5 questions or reactions people have to church. It's not relevant, and it's this one. I don't go to church, or I left the church because it's full of hypocrites. Many of us have heard that, right? So is it true? Is it true that the church is full of hypocrites? Well, here's the hard truth. Often we are perceived as hypocrites because in some ways and sometimes we are hypocrites. And the truth about hypocrisy in the church is that it does a lot of damage to the witness of who's inside of us, and it's not attractive to those who are looking for the answers in life. And most of all, it does damage to the witness of who Jesus is and what he's done. So here's our first note together. Jesus had tough words about hypocrites. Jesus had tough words about hypocrites. 17 times in the New Testament we see the word hypocrite, and 12 times it's said by Jesus. He knew the word well. The scripture I'm going to read to you is out of Matthew chapter 23. We're going to put it up here overhead. And Jesus is directing his comments towards the church leaders at the time, the religious leaders of the time, the Jewish religious leaders. So I'm going to share with you his words towards hypocrisy in the church. It starts out, it says, and Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, he says, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example. For they don't practice what they teach. Now, from here on, when you see the word hypocrite, we're going to yell it out together, right? Okay. So what sorrow awaits you, Jesus says, you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites. For you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others enter either. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees, hypocrites. For you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Wow. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees? Shout it. Hypocrites. For you're careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the most important aspects of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees? Hypocrites. For you are careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You got one more in you? Here we go. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees? Nail it. Hypocrites. For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Jesus just got after it in a big way. I didn't go through all the verses in between where he calls them snakes and vipers, and he's got tough words about hypocrisy. And let me tell you, hypocrisy is so highly dangerous in church leaders, but it's also dangerous in the church itself, in its people. So I want to translate this list to what Jesus was saying to religious leaders. I want to translate it to us, how we can avoid hypocrisy and how it hurts the church. So here's our list. Making a modern-day Pharisee. You ready? I think the best way to do this is like this. How to make a modern-day hypocrite. The first thing, and guys, these are things we need to guard for. These are things we need to watch out for. And this parallels what he was telling the church leaders. First is we expect people to be cleaned up before coming into the community of faith. But sometimes we don't invite people into the community of faith because of where they're at. Sometimes we make membership hard. Sometimes we make baptism hard. Ladies and gentlemen, those are doorways into discipleship. But we forget where we came from and what we had to navigate. And sometimes we make it really hard for people to enter the kingdom. Not only the kingdom that's here now, but the kingdom that's coming. Second is, this can be a modern day Pharisee, a hypocrite. One thing we got to understand is our hypocrisy is contagious. Especially to new believers. When we walk with people and we point them to Christ, they pay attention to our example. Maybe this mask isn't working so good. If our faith is one of cheap grace, no mercy, if our faith is, hey, all it takes to be a Christian is show up here on Sunday, check the card, you're good, rest of the week, be whatever. People will find that easy Christianity and follow our example. Another way that we can be hypocritical is we ignore or avoid people in need. Jesus shouted to the religious leaders, is like, you keep the law, but you walk past those. The most important part of the law is you walk past those in need, those who are hurting, those who are suffering. There's no mercy. If we speak of our faith but do not have mercy and action in our lives to help others, we're not reflecting Christ. Another way that there can be hypocrisy is our faith is just a facade for others to see. Jesus declared outwardly, he says, the religious leaders, you're like whitewashed tombs. You look great on the outside, but inside you have all these dry, dead bones. We can look like whitewashed tombs also. You know, just a Facebook post, a tweet, or a cool hashtag, good on the outside, but inside we just have this false life. And not just picking on us, guys. This is where we hide our hurt. It's where we hide our pain. It's like we show up at church with this mask on Sunday, but nobody knows what's going on in our lives during the rest of the week. And we hide the real self of suffering, pain, trouble. And that's hypocrisy too. And it really hurts ourselves. And the last one is we hide our sin instead of confessing and turning from it. An area of hypocrisy is trying to show a sinless life. I come in here with this mask that, hey, I got it all together. No sin in my life. So I bury this sin. But one day that sin's exposed. And then what does everybody think from the outside? It's like, oh man, there's just another Christian who doesn't really behave like a Christian. Those are all ways that we need to avoid and be careful where hypocrisy. It's the same thing he told the rulers or the leaders, but it's the same area that can trip us up. There's a song by Casting Crowns called Stained Glass Masquerade. Have you heard that one? Here's kind of the front part of it. It says, are we happy plastic people under shiny plastic steeples with walls around our weakness and smiles that hide our pain? But the invitation's open to every heart that's been broken. Maybe then we can close the curtain on our stained glass masquerade. A funny thing about Christians. Look at our next sermon note together. Christians, we are the best argument for and the best argument against Christianity. Christians are the best argument against Christianity. Is like, yeah, just look at your Christians. I don't want to be part of that. But ladies and gentlemen, because of who we are as broken people and stuff, we are the best argument for Christianity because of how it changes us. One of the most bothersome and refreshing things about the Bible is all the screw-ups in there. And God loves them nonetheless. Andrew Wilson's a teaching pastor. He said, the story of Christianity is full of light. It's full of mission and restoration and redemption and education and art and healthcare and abolition and compassion and justice. But there is an undeniable dark side from the church of attacking, burning, crusading, drowning, enslaving, flogging, ghettoizing, hunting, imprisoning, Jew-hating, killing, lynching, and so on through the entire alphabet. But here's where we are the best argument for Christianity and our brokenness. Is that we are the best argument for a God who loves his people solely on the basis of grace. Even though we're severely flawed, yet aspiring to be better, Christians are the best example for Christianity. Because we're all getting better. So this next sermon note's kind of a really important point. Well, they all are, but this one's kind of a good hinge point. Christianity doesn't rise or fall on Christians, but on the person of Jesus. Whether Christianity is true or not does not depend on how Christians behave. We cannot excuse hypocrisy in a church, but we cannot dismiss it either. Christian faith is not invalidated by hypocritical behavior. Christianity rises and falls on the person of Jesus. Christianity is about a Savior and a person who was never a hypocrite. And he lived a life which is our prime example to live like. So that gets us to our next note. The church isn't full of hypocrites. We have room for more. You can see we're not full, right? When people come up to me, this happens. When people come up to me and they say, Brian, they say, and this, I believe it or not, I get this, as we talk about pastor, we invite him into the church life, invite him into stuff going on a week, and they say, I'd like to, but I hear it quite often. It's like, there's just a lot of hypocrisy. The church is full of hypocrites. And it's like, oh my gosh, we're much worse than that. Or can be worse than that. This church is not full. This empty seat is for any hypocrite. They're welcome here. Amber, don't take this wrong. We'll sit by you. This chair is for the rich person who's righteous and doesn't care about the rest of the world. He's welcome here. This chair is for the person who struggles with sexual identity. They are welcome here. This chair is for all the people that come here wearing masks to hide their hurt, hide their pain, hide their suffering. And they're trying to show you they got it all together. We have plenty of room. Yeah, we won't give them Bonnie's chair. I have an answer that we all can use when somebody responds that church is full of hypocrites. Probably not the answer I said that we're worse than that. That's a joke. We can be worse than that, but here's the answer to give everybody when they say we're a house full of hypocrites, is that the church is the perfect place for imperfect people. And I'd like you to say that with me. The church is the perfect place for imperfect people. The church is the bride of Christ. And we're all getting better here. We look more like a hospital than instead of a clubhouse. And we're all getting better. Church is community, and we all have one thing in common here, and that is Jesus. That's what brings us all to this room. And because of him, we are getting better every day. and we're becoming more like him every day. So, this last sermon note together, this is a remedy for hypocrisy. Here's our remedy. If this should ever pop up in our life, this is how we avoid it. This is maybe how we deal with it if we're struggling with something that we've talked about, I'd say. Let's be honest, be real, and be love. Be honest, be real, be love. Be honest. Be honest. None of us are perfect. That's okay. Church is a place for hurting people, broken people, struggling people, and people who fixed it and are getting better every day. Church is full of people who are a work in progress. And it's okay to be a work in progress. I don't have it all together. I don't have all the answers. It's okay to be honest about ourselves. So be honest. Be real. We are not better than anyone else. We're righteous than anyone else. And for goodness sakes, we're not in a competition with each other. The only person that we should compare ourselves to is Jesus. And when we compare ourselves to Jesus, we will find out that we are a broken, sinful, and not good enough people. But because Jesus loved and died for us, and now we are God's adopted children, we are accepted, we are redeemed, we are approved, and we are loved. Not because of anything we did, but because of what Jesus did. We don't have to wear a mask to be good enough. Jesus accepts us just the way we are. And he cares about where we're going. Be honest, be real. The last is be love, be loved. Man, love changes everything. Love does not ever work under the mask of hypocrisy. Love others without judgment. Share the good news with gentleness. Go at people full of grace and full of truth. You need both. The same grace and truth that you and I got on our journey. Love is not a bumper sticker or a Facebook post. Love is feet moving, hands reaching. Love in action. Faith in action. So there's one scripture here that kind of summarizes this up, I think, well. It's Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. This is the early church leader, Paul, encouraging, we say Paul's name a lot because he wrote a lot. He's encouraging this young church in Philippi, and this kind of pulls it all together. He tells them this. He says, and this is for us. Is there any encouragement from belonging to Christ? Is there any comfort from his love? Is there any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then Paul says, make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, by loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Leave your masks at home. Be humble, thinking of others as better than ourselves. Don't look out for our own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. So let me finish with the rest of the song from Stained Glass Masquerade. It says, but would it set me free if I dared to let you see the truth behind the person you imagine me to be? Or would your eyes be opened, or would you walk away? Would the love of Jesus be enough for you to stay? Next week, we're going to finish this series, We Are the Church, with this hard question. Should our faith be private? In a world of separation of state and church and all the things that go on, pushes back, your faith is yours, the common response of the community, your faith is yours, keep it private. Is the faith of the church to be private? Part of the answer is we will not meet here. Next Sunday, one service, 10 a.m. in City Park. There's part of our answer. We're not in your face. We're taking the love of Christ right in the center of our community. So don't show up here. You'll be worshiping by yourself, and that's not church. Come with us. So say it with me. Next Sunday, 10 a.m., one service, City Park. Bring a side dish. That's important. We're going to be celebrating the end of the We Are Church series there in City Park. So you have on your seat a card. There's a map for parking, all the things, the side dish, all the reminders are on here. But would you look around and grab an extra one? Because I think it'd be a great time to bring somebody and a friend who struggles with what church is or who church is. Bring them with you. You always have that invite here open every Sunday. We got all these seats available. Take an extra copy, invite somebody with you. Ushers, would you come forward? We're going to pray for offering. An offering is a time of worship. And the one thing I'm going to ask in our offering, the first thing we think of is, where is this in our life? Do we have a mask today that we need to leave at the altar and be honest and be real and be love? Let's bow our heads together. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for your word. Thank you that Jesus got all up on the issue of hypocrisy. Those are strong words. But Father, our first offering to you, this is a time of worship, is that recognize if we have a mask today, a mask that would turn people off from who Christ really is. But Father, what I worry more about in this congregation is a lot of times we have masks of hurt and suffering that we're afraid to let our community know. And we have a community here that wants to come around and help. It's all about what our church is about. So Father, I would ask that those who have a mask today, that mask come off and be left at the altar with you and trust you. Father, other offering is that we are real. We're honest and we're real when we leave here. And when we do that, we have the freedom to love like Christ does. Father, empower your church. That is our offering. Give up what's holding us back and let's go invade our community with the love of Christ. So let's give with hearts that are full of joy today in response to your Son, Jesus. We pray all this in his name. Amen.
From the sunrise to the sunset, may the name of God be praised. Both now and till forever, till our lungs give up on us. As we gather in his presence, mountains move at his command. Remember all his blessings. He is faithful, he is good. His praise will never cease. Let the church rise and fall at your feet. Let your bright shine like the stars in the sky. Let the church sing of all that you are. Jesus, it's all for you, for your glory and your faith. In his name we found our freedom, he to us we love. the church sing of all that you are. Jesus, it's all for you, for your glory and your fame.
So let's do that, church. Rise with me. To our guests, before you leave, just a reminder, fill out this connection card and drop it off at our Welcome Center. It's a gift for you, but we also want to just connect with you, see if there's any questions you may have about the church, but we're glad you're here. And also, this is a time where those who are interested in baptism, those who are interested in young adults, those who are interested in welcome team ministry, head for the pizza down this aisle, and then we'll all get to our own rooms and we'll continue on from there. So let's head out. Throw away your mask. Let people see the real Jesus inside you, and we'll see you next Sunday, 10 a.m., City Park. We'll talk to you later.
So let the church rise.